Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Bane bringing you all manner of tabletop gaming, and in this video we are going to be taking a look at Tordominis. This is a producer of very small miniatures that could be of interest if you do any kind of 15mm gaming or smaller 10mm or even 6mm, especially if you play these games. If you play these kind of games and you like very small miniatures, fantasy in particular, you should really have a look at Tordominis. They are on, I think they're on Patreon and Tribes at myminifactory. And I have a selection of miniatures I'd like to show you so you can see what the miniatures are really like rather than just the renders or simple pictures. But about a year ago, I purchased a couple of his army sets. I think it was the Skull God and also the Egyptian Undead army sets. They were on sale. I think he was introducing a new version, so he put the old ones on sale. And I've got a couple of the army sets. And I actually featured a couple of the minis in a previous hobby table episode. And these are the minis that I featured. However, in the video, they were just printed. Now, they've been painted. And again, I do apologize. In this sand golem color from Army Painter turns out very orange on the video camera. But these figures were painted soon after I did that video. I'll put the link up here to the video. But yes, they came out amazing. These floating skulls with blood coming out of the eyes. Very, very nice. Now, I printed and painted two of these to act as objective markers or possibly like spell effect markers or tokens kind of thing. And like I say, they came out really, really nice. Now, like I said, that was about a year ago that I printed these out, and I painted them about 3 or 4 weeks afterwards. And how long after that? About 4 months after that, I actually got a comment from Tordominis on that video. It took him a while to find it, but he said, "Look, can I send you some some minis for you to sort of test and experiment?" Because I did mention that. The ones that I did order, there were a lot of islands. When I was putting them through the slicer, there were a lot of islands. So he said, I'll send you some others, some of the newer ones, and you can test them out. And I'm like, yeah, very nice. So I got the files about 4 months ago, and it wasn't actually the Skull God or the Corn set. It was actually the Everchanger set, the Demons of Change. And I printed a bunch out, and it has taken me a long time to get them finished. There have been a lot of other projects in the meantime. They've been painted on and off all this time, but I did print out a bunch. Now, in the set, you do get, I think, 8mm, 10mm, 15mm versions of the figures. And the ones that I was really interested in to begin with were the 10mm strips, which, like I showed you just now, these can be used for Warmaster and probably Age of Fantasy regiments, although I'm trying to figure out a way of doing sort of Age of Fantasy regiments at the same scale that we see in Warmaster in terms of the number of figures, the number of bases. I mean, this is the new version of regiments, and I'm looking through, and I'm just not seeing a way to have huge hordes or huge regiments at the moment. But yes, you can definitely use these for large regiments in Warmaster, and they came out really, really nice. Now, these ones I have just printed and primed so you guys can see what they look like. Let's have a look at the back. Again, I do apologize for my hand being the background, but if I don't use my hand, it's even harder to get them in focus. But yeah, so I printed out a bunch of these, as you can see here. printed out a bunch of these to sort of test and see how they worked. And there's a couple of command sprues as well. I mirrored the command sprues so that I get a couple of a little bit of variety. There you can see here, really, really nice. So yeah, I printed out a bunch. Come on, focus. I printed out a bunch of these as a test. I also wanted to see how they would scale with other miniatures sort of designed for Warmaster. So these are next to some Chaos Warriors or Chaos Barbarians by Maceface, my mate Matt at Maceface. So, I mean, they scale up pretty nicely. They are a bit chunky. But in terms of getting them on the battlefield and having a look at them or sort of from a distance, they're going to match up fine. And again, these are the 10mm printed ones. Again, these are Beastmen from Maceface. Really nice. And again, the Tordominis scale up very, very nicely. So yeah, these are 10mm. Now, at the moment, I'm debating how I'm going to base these little critters up, because, like I mentioned, in Age of Fantasy Regiments, you don't have the same sort of number of strips as Warmaster. You see, with Warmaster, you have a 40 by 20 base as standard, and you'll then put two strips per base. And then essentially one fighting unit will be 3 of these bases, so you've got like 6 strips. Typically, yeah. But I did find on Thingiverse, I did find some other bases, some other Warmaster bases. Now these print, come on, focus, with like a leaf or grass pattern around them. So I was thinking, if I use these style of base, I'll put the link down below where you can find these. If I can use these, I can just paint these leaves and grass and everything, and I won't actually need to go through all the hassle of printing. The problem is the slots ain't big enough. The slots ain't big enough. The miniatures won't fit. Sorry about this. It keeps going out of focus. But yeah, they don't fit in the slots. So I thought, that's no good. But then I looked a little bit harder and found that they have what they call void versions or void bases. That a little bit inside? No. Okay. And with these, they do fit. So you can very easily put in 2 of these little strips into the base. And to be honest with you, I wouldn't even bother doing any flocking or anything. I'll just put them inside one of these bases. Now, I do have some painted up. Here we go. Of course, they're pink. Not a brilliant paint job. I'm not the world's greatest painter. You're not watching these videos to see a level of painting like Squidmar or anything like that, or Miniac. But they do the job, especially at this scale. Again, remember, these are 10mm scale. So I used Army Painter for these. I think Familiar Pink, Tidal Wave or Tidal Blue for the tongues, Zealot Yellow for some of the jewelry and for the beaks. Come on, focus. Are you going to focus? There you go. And again, the reverse. And again, these are 10mm figures. I painted up a couple of these, a couple of strips, just to test out whether speed paint would work at this scale, whether you'd actually see the shadows, the highlights and everything else. And they came out pretty nice. Pretty nice. And again, at this scale, I'm not too worried too much about highlighting or anything like that. Now, I did paint the bases just a basic green because what I did was I actually painted a couple of those void bases. And again, you can see, again, just very, very basic. I just did 2 colour. I did like the, what do they call that? Clover. They look like clover leaves. I did that 1 tone of green. I did the leaves a lighter tone of green, and I used the dark green as the background. Nothing brilliant, nothing major. But again, if you put these guys in here, sorry, they're a little bit fiddly. They look perfectly okay for the tabletop. So I don't have to worry about, because one thing that I used to play a lot of DBA, and sometimes with the 15mm figures, it was really hard getting in between the strips or between the figures to actually do the flocking or the basing and stuff. So something like this, I mean, you don't even need to glue them in here. Just put a little bit of blue tack inside, yeah, and then just swap them around between your different armies. Sorry, I moved a little bit off center there. But yeah, they came out really, really nice. Now, the bases themselves, I printed these flat onto the build plate. They do have some holes to prevent too much suction onto the FEP. And yeah, they printed out really, really nicely. There are different variants. For example, there are some, I think, these bases are not Tordominis. I'm just showing these off. There are some if you've got like large figures like ogres. You've also got some, maybe you've got flyers or things like that. There's a variety of different designs, but this one I found that the strips, both for the Tordominis, also for the mace face minis, the strips were just a bit too big to fit inside the slots. So I had to say goodbye to these ones, and I used these ones instead, and these work really nice. Now, whether I want to print out and paint enough of these bases for the entire army, I don't know yet. Depends how big the army is going to be, because I'm a little bit worried. Because in the game, both Warmaster and in regiments, these things split. When you kill them, they split into two others. So I'm going to need a lot of figures, a lot of bases. But yeah, these are 10mm strips, and they look really, really nice. Everchanger. Right, what we have here is a 15mm army, which is, I don't know how many points in Warmaster. Well, I mean, this can't be used in Warmaster. Warmaster uses the strips and everything else. But I did make an army for this in Age of Fantasy. Not regiments, but the normal Age of Fantasy from onepagerules. And what I have here is, I think, 1,220 points. I was aiming for 1,250, but I couldn't get that extra 30 points. Some of these armies are very difficult to add little bits and pieces. This army in particular has a bunch of units that you just can't upgrade with anything else. So what do we have here? Well, again, these are all 15mm, even though these things are bloomin' huge. These are all 15mm scale single figures that you get when you purchase the Everchanger army or the individual packs. We have the champion here. Then we have 2 units of horrors here, but the army only has 1. Because they're really, really expensive. So I actually printed out and painted up 10 of these change horrors, or pink thingies. Come on, focus. There you go. I actually printed and painted 10 of these, just so I've got some when I want to play slightly larger games and battles. I also printed out, come on, focus. There you go. I also printed out 20 blue thingamies. Because, again, this army has something called split. When you kill one of the pink change horrors, or one of the basic change horrors, it splits into 2 of these. So I printed and painted 10 of the basic change horrors, and then 20 of the smaller post-split blue horrors. These are the 15mm scale models. These are the 10mm scale models. And yes, you do get singles as well. So this is one of them. Again, I think I used Tidal Wave or Tidal Blue from Army Painter. And where's his 15mm brother? There you go. I love the sculpts. They've got so much character. So yeah, pink and blue. Pre-shift, post-shift. Or split, sorry, not shift. What am I talking about? So yeah, I had to print a bunch of these because, like I say, I'm not planning on keeping it at 1200 points. I want to make it sort of a 2000 point army. So yeah, there's actually 2 units of Change Horrors here, but in the army list there should only be 1, and I have printed enough of the small guys for when they split. What else do we have? We have 2 units of Screechers. Tordomini calls these Manta Demons. So each unit is 3, so I've got 2 units of these. They come with the flying base, and they're lovely. There's a whole bunch of different sculpts. I think there were 6 or 7 different sculpts, maybe 8 different sculpts. So I printed out a variety, and again based them on coins to give them a little bit of weight. Again here, this is another one. I'm watching. I love the little... If you look at it from the front, it's really comical. If you look at it from the top, it's not quite so comical. It looks rather deadly. But yeah, so I did 6 of these Manta Demons, which count as Screechers. Come on, in Age of Fantasy. There you go. A whole bunch of designs. I printed and painted 3 Scorchers. So yeah, Scorchers. I think I do apologise. I actually knocked the camera just now, so I've had to reposition it. Hopefully it's in roughly the same position. So I've got 3 of these Scorchers. I think the file or Tordominis calls them elemental beasts, I think. Real chunky. Now the paint scheme is actually the paint scheme that I adopted for my previous ones, and this is a 28mm old school figure from a certain other manufacturer, and this is the paint scheme I used back then for these. This is the 15mm scale for from Tordo. Look, it's about the same size. But yeah, I liked the way that the red and yellow came out on my older figures, so I wanted to continue it onto these. I love it. I love it. They're real bulbous flames. Again, same colours. I'm trying to keep a limited palette here. So Zillet Yellow, I think Tidal Wave or Tidal Blue, and for the red, I think it was Slaughter Red to begin with, and then I highlighted it up with various reds and oranges, just to give it a little bit more definition, because the Slaughter Red came out just a little bit too dark. But yeah, I did 1 unit of those, which is 3. And finally, actually, the last part of the army doesn't actually come from the Everchanger set, and it's these Furies, these Change Furies. Now, these actually came from the old Skull God army that I bought initially from Tordominis, from myminifactory. These are actually from that army pack. And again, you paint them up sort of a sort of neutral colour. You can use them in all kinds of armies. And these are really nice, but be very careful. When you're printing these things out at 10mm or 15mm, be very careful with the wings. They are so thin. Now, I'm not going to say anything about not breaking or anything like that. Oh, shit, I said it. But these printed out perfectly. I didn't have to do anything on these guys, and they painted up quite nicely. But yeah, I think there's 3 different designs for these, 3 different sculpts. So I printed out 2 each of 2, and then I printed 1 of the design that had just a little bit extra in the design. A decapitated body underneath. But yeah, these are the ones I'm using for the Furies. These are, again, 15mm scale. Came out really nice. And that is the army of the Everchanger by Tordominis. But like I say, I have essentially 2 units of the horrors here. Should only be 1, should only be 5, not 10. And over here, the replacements, when these things get killed, they split into 2 of these. Again, I've printed out enough to cover both units here, even though in the starter army of 1220 points, I can only afford 1 unit, because 1 unit is something like 350 points. Yeah, for 5 figures initially, but of course they split down to more, but it's still really, really expensive. But I can't envision a Demons of Change army that doesn't have the horrors. So so the army basically contains 1 champion, 145 points, caster +2, blessing of change, symbol of change, 1 unit of change furies, 85 points, no upgrades because they can't have any. There's going to be 1 unit. Let's move some of these out of the way. 2, 4, 5. Let's move these guys out of the way for a second. Out of the way. Right. 2, 4, 5. There you go. So 5 of these guys. There you go. 5 horrors. And again, these cannot have any upgrades. And there's 355 points there. We got here 1 unit of Scorchers, 3, which is 215 points. And we got 2 units of Screechers, which are 210 points each. So here you've got 420 points. Now, this seems to me to be a very expensive army. I need to take it out and play with it, obviously, but I'm a little bit concerned about how expensive these things are in a small army. I can see the value of them in a larger army, but I'm a little bit concerned about how this army is going to fight at a smaller sort of points value, 1220 or 1250 points. A little bit concerned because that's over 350 points right there. And yes, again, I know they split into these little things, but still, you know, it's a little bit concerning. But yeah, these are, let me put these guys back. These are the Everchanger figures from Tordomini, and like I say, thank you very much to Tordominis for sending these to me. I didn't get the complete army set. I just got these to sort of play around with, to test, you know, to mess about with. But I didn't get all of the options, all of the figures. I didn't get the discs. I also think I was missing something else, I think. But it's fine, because you've got enough here to play a general army. I did get the chariots, but I can't include them in an army this size. So maybe when I expand the army to maybe 2,000 points, maybe I'll think about printing, painting, and adding in maybe one of the chariots. Now, a lot of these figures did print well. There were a few where I had some issues. I think this is this one? Yeah, I did have some printing issues where parts didn't print properly. But I do highly recommend that you check. If you're going to print the pre-supported files, I highly recommend checking them first, because I'm still finding a lot of islands, especially on the strips. The designer from Tordominis did come back and say, well, you know, he's printed them out and they're fine, but I'm a bit cautious about that, you know. I am finding a lot of islands even on the newer files, so it takes a little bit of time to, you know, add a few little light supports here and there, but then they come out fine. But yeah, this is the Everchangers from Tordominis. Again, well worth a look if you are into Warmaster, or into sort of Age of Fantasy regiments. Again, I'm trying to figure out a way of having larger units than just a couple of strips. But I'll have to think about that and see how it goes. But yeah, definitely worth looking at. He has a range of different figures. He has various demon armies. He has, I think, Chinese or Japanese, I think I saw. He also has one which, okay, here's the thing. He sent me another army which he called the Norse Demons, which is essentially Fimir and sort of undead. And I'm trying my hardest to figure out which army I can use them for in Age of Fantasy or Warmaster. I can't figure out what army. So if you guys are versed in Age of Fantasy or Warmaster and you have ideas in terms of how to do a Familiar based army without it being a demon army or a Chaos Warrior army, come on, focus, or a Beastman army, because I think I can see, oops, nearly dropped them. I think I can see a way to convert it into using the Beastmen stats, but I don't want another Beastman army because I've got Beastmen. I just need to get Matt from Mace Face to actually finish off the range. But I want to print and play with these Familiar because I'm old school. I'm old. I remember when we used to have the Familiar, and I want to play them again. But yeah, check them out. I'll leave a link down below for the Tordo's page on my myminifactory. Check him out. He does have Patreon. I think he has tribes. Check him out. Well worth it. Lots and lots of figures. A nice guy to deal with. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video. And excuse the painting. It's only War Game standard. It's nothing more than that. But there you go. Tordominis. If you like the video, please take a moment to like and subscribe. Would really appreciate that. Ring the bell to be notified of new videos. I don't have a regular upload schedule. I upload and record and do them when I can. So ring the bell to be notified when they are uploaded. But until the next video, take care, stay safe. Cheers.